Before we jump into today's topic, a quick disclaimer. The stories and data we share come from the states that we practice in and the experiences that we personally had, which can differ greatly across our country and certainly the globe. This is not a professional advice show. So let's get comfy and talk about death.
Hello, and welcome to Mort Mike,
a down-to-earth discussion on death and dying. I'm Sierra.
And I am Red, and we are your Death Defiers again this week in a continuation.
Part 2.
Yes, very exciting. So last week we got to hear about all of the exploits of Alexander the Great as told by Sierra, which, if you haven't listened to it, my God, you must take a look. It is a wild ride from start to finish.
It's like, middle school ancient history mixed with drunken history. It's great.
And this week, now you get to hear my solid pick for that unkillable son of a bitch from history. Now, this is actually requested by a fan. It was somebody that actually won our raffle to pick one of our topics, and that's why we did these 2 episodes to begin with. So thank you again to the Goliath family. And I cannot wait to get into what they selected. This is really what we built this entire episode around.
Oh, I'm so buckled in. I'm so excited. Okay.
Oh, I'm
so excited.
I really thought we would save the worst for last out of all these guys, because it's got to be somebody who undoubtedly everybody has heard of at this point. Coming in at a whopping 4 attempts on his life. Not quite as many as Alexander the Great when it comes to just overall dying from stupidity, but 4 attempts at his life.
Yeah, you know what? His weren't even I feel like Alexander the Great's weren't like attempts. His was like
he attempted on his
own actions.
Yeah. This is the Mad Monk that was a magnate in the royal political sphere, the lover of the Russian queen, none other than Grigory Rasputin, everybody. I was so excited when the Goliaths had selected this, because I honestly love Rasputin, even though he's very problematic. Let's not get that twisted at all. He's a mess. But I was so excited because it's just a story for the ages. It really is. Rasputin actually came from pretty humble beginnings. He was born into a peasant family back in 1869. Nice. For which people who are like bad at what a historical date is, like, what does that even mean? That was actually the time period that was just after the American Civil War. So to just kind of give you like a concept of like world history and time frame. So around his 30th birthday, he kissed his wife and his baby boy goodbye, and he shoved off for a spiritual pilgrimage. There's much speculation on why he took this initial first step, from holy visions to horse rustling, and no, I won't explain that. But much like his childhood years, it remains a mystery. This man is an enigma through and through, and you will soon come to find that out. So he took off from his homestead and he made haste for St. Nicholas Monastery and underwent this religious awakening. Upon his return home, he was a fully changed man. He was dirty. He was acting weird. He was a sober vegetarian.
Oh.
And yeah, this didn't stop his holy journeys, though. He kept on. He kept on keeping on.
Good for him.
He continued to roam the country. He went to different religious venues. He prayed harder. He got stranger, and he began to amass quite a small following from his home village.
That is wild.
Honestly, I mean, isn't that the goal? Just get really weird with it. And,
yeah, man. I mean,
and hope people come along with you for the ride.
Yeah, the combination of like dirty, weird, sober vegetarian is basically describing half of the population of California, and I'm loving it. Like, I'm here for it.
It's unfortunate. He was born into the wrong time period, truly, because he would have been right at home. with certain demographics nowadays, I'm sure. I mean, like a Wook. Oh God, Rasputin would have been a Wook at a.
Was the OG Wook, man.
He would have been a Wook at a festival, a music festival. He absolutely would have been.
Get him the little spirit scarf or whatever the fuck those are called, and the little.
Hey guys, I got
fans.
a ground score. Do you want to see? See what I got? Like,
you guys want to try it? Oh no. The key to acid is to just do more. It's the less that you take, the less you're gonna understand, and you need to kill your ego.
You only ever did like one tab. I really think you don't even try to open your third eye until you get to about your like 5th or 6th tab. So
yeah, your pituitary gland. God damn it! I hate that I know that.
Once he started to reach about his mid-30s, the Rasputin rage, I'm coining that term, started to worm its tendrils far and wide out from that small town, out from that little grouping of followers that he had started to get. And with a letter of recommendation from the bishop himself, he packed his bags and he headed for St. Petersburg. And that's where he started to mingle with many of the other religious higher-ups there. There was like a lot of coattail riding. He would ride them to network and rub shoulders with a bunch of the other political authorities. So that's where he started to really get interactive with all these higher-ups. Now, here's where I pump the brakes. How? How is this man getting audiences with people of this caliber? Just like you guys out in the audience can't see it because this is a auditory medium, but I put a picture of Rasputin in our episode notes for Sierra's.
You sure did.
I sure did. So just to kind of like give you a verbal explanation of what you guys would be seeing, of a good old picture of Grigori. He's got this like greasy Dutch boy haircut, unkempt, wild trucker beard, haunted, sunken eyes below this like perpetually furrowed brow. It was reported that he had.
Where are his eyebrows?
It's like a caveman. He's got this caveman thing going on, you know, with the
I'm kind of here for it though, but like also, he just he really looks like.
It puts the G in gnarly.
You know, the listeners don't need to know this, but I've got a lot of Southern family, and he looks like somebody who would show up to like one of our little family reunions, and it would be Uncle Ernest, and none of us would know how he's related, but we would all have our suspicions that maybe a family really liked another family member. And he's got the beard for it. He's got the slick down hair. And he's missing
you
his
can see how greasy he
eyebrows
is. You can see how greasy he is in this. This photo is like 200 years old, and you can see the grease. You can see it. Like,
yeah.
bunga.
He looks like he smells like sadness.
And, well, you're not far off. I mean, apparently it was reported that he smelled just horrid, like bad hygiene, horrible table manners. He was consistently drunk as a skunk. Like,
wow, good for him. He went from sober vegan to drunk as a skunk.
You know, hey, he was a local business supporter. Had a full punch card at brothels in the area.
Attaboy,
so
though.
That too. Yeah,
we love that. God came down and really said, "Get this man his dick wet."
Somebody help this poor man.
Somebody help this poor man.
Please, sir, can I have some coochie?
Yeah,
just a little
crumb,
coochie,
please. Just a crumb of coochie. Can you hit my punch card on my 10th coochie round? I get access to the rear. Don't put that in there. That's bad.
I'm putting that is staying in. That is staying in, Joey. That stays in. So with all of these factors that are now displayed in front of you, what in the hell allowed him to have the ear of all of these powerful people, all of these real hoity-toity types? Like, it is bizarre, but there is like actually somewhat of an explanation to this. Despite his outward appearance, apparently he was incredibly charismatic. He rolled nat 20s on all of those checks.
Good for him.
He's been said to have mystical powers as well, so like mind reading, predicting the future, performing healing miracles. He has a look.
I'm bought into that.
But it also it mattered the time that he arrived to St. Petersburg, like in that time period specifically, because apparently a lot of the affluent were really bored with run-of-the-mill religion, super bored with it. They were done, ready to throw it out. And they were desperate for something strange, something weird, something supernatural, and that absolutely was Rasputin's specialty. He was like an oddity, like a curiosity to them.
Oh.
So that does lend
makes sense.
some explanation to like why do we bring the Sasquatch man to all of our really like fancy dinner parties?
Entertainment.
Basically, like, oh man, make the caveman's hand another funny. Like,
Oh my God, I love that. I mean, not to be mean, but like, we all know it. We all know the type. We all know.
we still invite them out to parties. We do. We all have this
You're
person.
still my friend.
Yeah,
Probably.
as long as you got some kooky
riz.
ass shit. Yeah.
Just kidding. Oh, I
But
love
from
it.
here, I mean, he kept on climbing. He continued his climb, and from here he befriended princesses of the Tsar's cousins, who would eventually pave the way for Rasputin to meet Tsar Nicholas himself, like the big man. And word of this like otherworldly power type crap that he had made their way up to Tsar Nicholas, which that perked his ears up. He was so ready to hear more, because Tsar Nicholas and Tsarina Alexandra had a child, Alexei, and he was suffering from a, at the time, incurable illness.
Ooh.
Alexei was afflicted with hemophilia, which I'm sure a lot of people are pretty much familiar with at this point in the modern era of medicine.
Ah, yes.
And on many occasions, Rasputin would be asked to pray over their child in like hopes of healing him. And coincidentally, similar to like Alex the Great, of just like, man, things should have gone so much differently, but he's lucky this worked out for him because it springboarded him into what we'll talk about later. Alexei actually improved like in the days
okay.
after their prayer sessions. Like he actually got better, and like what? Like, okay.
Yeah, what's the magic science behind this?
It's absolute nonsense. He would often advise like the royalty, like don't let the doctors interfere. Don't, when he's having his episodes, don't let them try to administer any of their treatments. Like keep him out of the room. Just me praying. That's it. Like he basically said he barred the doctors from visiting him. Scientifically speaking, not allowing them to administer medicines, like back in the day they had like aspirin, that actually could have helped. It could have helped with Alexei's recoveries. Aspirin makes it harder for blood to clot. And they wouldn't have discovered that side effect to aspirin for another 50 years. So that actually helped improve like his episodes of hemophilia, because it was just not having like that side effect. Like, you know, when you see medicines on TV of like...
For people that may not know, that definitely aren't me, what is that?
What? Aspirin?
Hemophilia. No,
Oh.
I know aspirin. I got the aspirin part. I just figured I should double check on that one.
So hemophilia, it's an inherited, like it is something you can inherit from like generation after generation. It's a bleeding disorder. So like the blood doesn't clot like properly. So like aspirin making it so blood wouldn't clot clearly would have made it worse. So
Right. So stopping it makes it better because... Oh, wow. That's wild. Okay. Yeah, I had no idea what it was. I'm never going to admit that, though. I was rolling with it. That's crazy. Okay.
But there's no way that Rasputin actually knew this. He was just
had no
really
idea.
lucky that he just happened to say like, no doctor, just my prayer. My prayer is all the boy needs. Like my voice, my connection to God. Like let me do this.
Your Rasputin voice, I need it on like a full audio recording so I can listen to it when I go to sleep. It's great.
I'll be your ASMR baby.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, I'm so ready for that. Oh.
But yep, just a lucky Khan, no miracle maker, but to the Tsar and the Tsarina, he was basically God himself at that point. So he was in. He had the faith and the support of some of the highest ranking officials in Russia. and became their close advisor, their confidant, especially to the Tsarina. But his controversial behaviors began to be made known. Often did accusations of sexual misconduct or even assault surfaced. And he was actually denounced as a heretic from the church for his methods that bastardized traditional religion, self-idolization, sexy conquests. So it truly was a shame how he carried on. I was
Damn it.
I was so excited to put that in the notes. I couldn't wait.
That's so good. It caught me so off guard, too.
The Tsar actually was confronted about these allegations, but he actually was just like, nah, that's my homeboy. He shoot him away. Totally said, like, boo-hoo to this.
Ride or
Like, I don't
die.
care. Ride or die. That's his ride or die. So this does bring us to his first attempt on his life.
Oh, shit.
Chionya Gusiva was a close devout of Ilyador, which was a priest who had a lot of interest in taking Rasputin down a notch because of all of his naughty business. After unsuccessfully trying to separate him from the royal family, Ilyador was defrocked, actually, as a priest and was banished. And Gusiva stabbed Rasputin outside of his home in the stomach. And this was only proved to be a near fatal wound. Nothing super serious, but it was an attempt. Even though she had acted alone, many believe this could have been a hit taken out by this disgraced priest, Ilyador.
Sounds like it.
A little too convenient, if you ask me. So I'd say that actually is probably, even yet again, history with a grain of salt. A lot of this stuff is secondhand
exactly.
stuff, but sounds pretty probable.
Raising some eyebrows.
Mm-hmm.
And some knives, apparently.
All out of spoons, just knives.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So outside of...
Or, oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Rasputin, yes.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that was his whole mantra.
Pretty fucking much. Outside of him just being an all-around bad dude, Russian nobility started to fear his continuing rise of power, like especially having that direct access to the Tsar and his family's trusts. It was starting to raise their hackles up quite a bit. It's like a potential strategic nightmare, and thus a devious plot began hatching to take him out of the game for good.
Kill him.
Kill him. Kill the man.
Just kidding.
No, hey, we'll get there.
Okay, I'm buckled in.
To be known by first name only, because I don't much feel like butchering more names than I already have. We have Prince Felix, Duke Dmitri, and politician Vladimir. And they all joined forces together to throw Rasputin a party he would never forget and never survive.
Dun, dun, dun! I'm glad we both went for it there.
We are definitely on the same. We are sharing the brain cell today.
One brain cell bouncing between us. Here we go.
So there's not like a whole lot of documentation on Rasputin's final day. A lot of this is just like secondhand telling, especially from like Prince Felix's personal memoirs, which, I mean, the man is talking about himself in this. So, I don't know. But this is what we know from those writings. It's just past midnight. The moon peeks out behind its cloak of clouds. Rasputin arrives to the prince's familial palace, where he's invited to the basement to join Felix for company and conversation. A light display of refreshments lay across the quaint table setting, tea and cakes. Little does the mad monk know, the noble trio have laced the unassuming confections with an impressive dose of cyanide, enough to knock over not only their victim, but his entire lineage. Rasputin greedily preys upon the cakes, crumbs carelessly falling from his maw, mingling into his disheveled, greasy whiskers. The prince stares past in silent disgust, taking solace in knowing that soon he will no longer have to entertain such a beastly man. Rasputin raises his hand petulantly, calling for a glass of wine. "Pour me some Madeira," he sloppily demands. As Felix intently watches the deep-colored beverage level into Rasputin's glass, a tightness grows in his chest. Why hasn't he keeled over? Not a cough, not a wince, nothing. Unfortunate for us, the bottle of wine became tainted during transport, he thinks to himself. With the remainder of the poison dispersed into the wine, Rasputin has laid claim to it for his grubby hands only, and this problem should solve itself quickly. Felix cocks a half-smile at the thought, but he asks for another pour. How is this possible? And a third? Has he not ingested enough toxin to kill a mammoth 5 times his size? Felix's blood begins to boil, his face growing as flush as Rasputin's drunken blush. The prince grips the table hard enough to break it in two, pushing back his chair as he stands. Through gritted teeth, he fumes, "Please, excuse me." Remembering himself, he sharply exhales, straightening his stance and decorated regalia, and leaves Rasputin to find the bottom of the bottle alone. It's at this point, during the note-taking for this episode, I realized I was writing Rasputin fan fiction, so...
I was here for it, though. I was so buckled in, dude. I was like, oh my god, when does the MPreg kick in? Just kidding. Oh, no, that'd be the worst.
All right, back in. Prince Felix regroups with his cohorts, telling him of this astonishing situation. He arms himself with a revolver to finish things the good old-fashioned way. He shoots Rasputin in the chest. The trio even drove to Rasputin's apartment dressed like him to cast a shadow of doubt on the crime that they had just committed, making it look like he returned home. Upon their return to the palace, Rasputin jumps up at them like a possum playing dead. Too bad Zombieland wasn't out around this time, or they'd have known to double tap.
That's a valid. That's now in my rule book forever.
So the prince attempts to escape the enraged Rasputin by hot-footing it out the courtyard, and the mad monk starts closing in real close behind him. The Duke Dmitri, finally deciding to do something during this entire fiasco, looses several more shots at Rasputin, where he finally collapses into the snow dead. The conspirators shredded his body and dumped it off a bridge into the Malaya Nevka River, where it was found a few days later.
Can we talk about how fucking just horrifying it would be to think that the man that you had just killed with fucking cyanide and shot a couple times starts chasing after you while you're dressed up as him?
Seriously.
Pops up like a fucking possum.
Like, straight up, like, a horror movie
grease
plot.
man.
Like, that would be... Because, you know, like, the crazed look in his eye, like, would have just been enough to kill somebody dead by itself.
I would have just shit myself right then and there in the snow.
Honestly, I would have went down like a sack of potatoes. Absolutely. Fucking no holds barred. None.
Yeah, amen.
Now, here's where it gets a little more muddled, a little more cloudy. Of course, his autopsy report was lost, but a later statement by the coroner mentioned 3 gunshot wounds, a laceration to his abdomen, and many post-mortem wounds. So there's a whole lot of speculation about his death since that document was lost. Some even said he wasn't dead upon being thrown into the river and actually succumbed to the hypothermia of the frigid waters themselves.
Lord.
So did they beat him? How many gunshots are there really? I mean, there's so much stuff. And of course this brings up okay, so if they really had poisoned him, why? That's, I don't care who you are, that's a lot of poison that they had, quote unquote, put into his drinks, whatever that might mean. So how would a man have lived through this period?
You know what's so weird? And I hate to interject here, but I was reading something about it when I was doing my research on the hardest people to kill. Mm-hmm. So there was this guy back in New York, and I can't remember what his name is, but he was this Irish dude who was homeless, and he was homeless with a couple of his other buddies during this terrible recession, blah, 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 whatever. And they decided to do an insurance scam on him, like a life insurance scam. So they put a life insurance with this dude who was also super duper shady. And they were trying to kill him, and they tried to poison him with arsenic and shit.
Okay.
And then they tried paint thinner. They tried all of this shit to try and kill this man. They literally put I can't even remember what it was. It was straight up arsenic in an oyster to try and murder this man. And it never worked because, and are you ready for this?
Okay.
He was an alcoholic. So he was consistently drunk to the point where his body only had the ability to absorb the alcohol that he was putting in, and it couldn't absorb the poison and all the rest of the toxins, so it literally just pissed him out
Flushed
because it
him
was
right
too
out.
busy trying to like break down all of the fucking liquor he had. So I don't know if that applies to like cyanide or not, but it was something I was reading. So
Well, like, knowing his history, I mean, that doesn't sound too far off. I mean, he was definitely a partier. He partook of the devil's beverage quite often. So, I mean, that could definitely be one of the...
so be an alcoholic. It
concepts.
saves your life. I'm just kidding.
We do not condone alcoholism.
We do not. But if you think somebody's trying to poison you, maybe you should have
Drink more.
Maybe you should have a drink.
There are some other reasons, though, that were mentioned that could have caused the poisoning to fail. So he could have been super paranoid. Like, Rasputin could have been the most paranoid person, knowing that he was like where he was in the political sphere. He could have actually had started to take small non-lethal doses to become immune to it. So like building up an immunity to
Does
the
that really
poison
work?
itself. Listen, I'm just a guy.
I'm
just
gonna
a
start
dude.
doing that.
But there's like a lot of different poisons, man. Like, you would have to.
I'm just gonna start
you'd have
taking
to
them
be
all.
mainline. Oh my.
I'm just kidding.
Oh my god.
I'm partially kidding. I don't think I'll be assassinated, but I feel like it'd be a good like backup thing to have, you know?
You know, also just a cool party trick. Like,
Yeah,
hey, you guys
cool
want to see
party
me
trick, man.
drink a vial of cyanide?
Guess what? I won't die. And then you die, and then the party's over for everybody.
Pick something out of your cleaning cabinet. I bet I can drink it.
Oh my God.
Pay for my round at the bar, and I'll drink whatever. You know.
Oh my god. That
It
takes
could be
like
a cool party trick.
it could be a cool party trick. It could also be your last party trick.
But what a way to go.
What a way to fucking go. In somebody's basement drinking bleach.
One of the other reasons they speculated it could have been just a bad batch of cyanide. That is
Happens
totally
to
a
the
thing
best
that
of
could
us.
happen. I mean, old times, can't even make medicine, let alone poison correctly. And honestly, just kind of doing like a base level one, the three killers could have just been really shitty at murder. Could have made it up completely. And honestly, the thing that like blew my mind the most, you know, yet again, we don't have the autopsy report. Apparently, the coroner also recounted he could not find any evidence of poisoning. So that could throw that whole fun memoir out the window, you know.
Yeah, but I like
so-
it, so we're keeping it.
Yeah, we're keeping it. That's canon. We're keeping
Right
it
on.
canon.
It's canon, yeah. Your Rasputin fan fiction.
Right.
And Preg included.
I mean,
For
regardless.
for those listeners that don't know what that is, don't Google it. Don't do it. Don't look it up. And definitely don't look up the fact that it is MPREG. Don't look that up.
Man, I feel like you're making it like
Easy for them to look it up?
devastatingly easy. The Nightmare Weaver over here.
Oh, you know it.
But regardless of his true method of death, it's hard to ignore how hardy he was in the end. Even surviving just one attempt is impressive, but multiple assassination attempts is pretty insane. So, evil incarnate wouldn't have been that easy to take down anyway.
Truth. That's he's a hardy gentleman. He's a hard to kill wook.
Hard to kill wook. Oh my god! I guess that's our takeaway from today. Rasputin was a wook. So great. We all learned something.
Accepted.
You know,
100%. I love that.
We'd love to give another huge thanks to the Goliath family for today's pod. In conclusion, they had donated to the podcast for our 2023 hosting dues and won the raffle, as previously mentioned, for this episode topic. So something that we'll definitely do in the future. So stay tuned to the end of 2023. We will definitely be doing that again. We still have hosting dues due next year, so we would love for you to join in.
Boo capitalism.
Yay. But of all the options that they gave us, getting the chance to talk about Rasputin and all of his grimy glory was our favorite. So thank you guys again for being such avid supporters of Mort Mike for this awesome episode opportunity.
Thank you. Yay.
Yay.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have had discovered that Rasputin was actually a wook.
Science.
Science opened my eyes.
But that's going to be it this week on Mort Mike. So connect with us on our socials on Facebook and YouTube at Mort Mike Podcast. And if you have any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear about or burning questions you might have about death, shoot us an email at mortmikepodcast@gmail.com.
Huge thanks to Joey, our dedicated studio gopher, Marson Music for our theme, Deputies of Death, and Macklin Legan for our custom icons and banners. Be sure to tune in the first Thursday of every month for more casual discussions on death. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Mort Mike.
Bye.
Peace.